Energy systems. Copyright subject support 2010. Energy can be defined as the capacity to do work. Learning objectives. To understand the different energy systems. To understand each energy system's use in sport and exercise. Remember, energy can be defined as the capacity to do work. Grading criteria. P7. Describe the three different energy systems and their use in sport and exercise activities. M4. Explain the three different energy systems and their use in sport and exercise activities. D2. Analyze the three different energy systems and their use in sport and exercise activities. Unit content. Energy systems, phosphocreatine, lactic acid, aerobic energy system. Amount of ATP produced by each systems. Sports that use these systems to provide energy. Recovery time. Energy systems ATP-PC system, anaerobic. Lactic acid system, anaerobic. Aerobic energy system. Copyright subject support 2010. Energy systems. The use of each system depends on the intensity and duration of each activity. If the activity is short in duration, less than 10 seconds, and high intensity, we use the ATP-PC system. If the activity is longer than 10 seconds and up to 3 minutes at high intensity, we use the lactic acid system. If the activity is long in duration and submaximal pace, we use the aerobic system. Energy continuum. Sometimes we need to use all three systems to regenerate ATP because the demands of an activity are varied. For example, in rugby, a short sprint to tackle a player uses the ATP-PC system. A long sprint the length of the pitch to score a try uses the lactic acid system. Positional play will use the anaerobic system. Adenosine triphosphate, ATP. ATP is vital for muscle contraction. It is the only form of usable energy in the body. The body only has enough ATP stored for one explosive act, about 3 seconds. After that there is none left. Then energy has to be created by other means. ATP, one explosive act, equals ADP, adenosine phosphate, ATP-adenosine triphosphate. High energy bond. ATP-adenosine triphosphate. Adenosine. Phosphate. 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 ADP-adenosine diphosphate. Energy. Adenosine. Phosphate. 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 Phosphocreatine energy system, ATP/PCR system. ADP plus creatine phosphate, PCR, equals ATP. Lasts about 10 seconds. High intensity maximum work. Extremely efficient. Does not need oxygen. Has no waste products. Think 100 meters. ATP-PC system advantages. Phosphocreatine stores can be regenerated quickly, 50% replenishment in 30s, 100% in 3 minutes. No fatiguing byproducts. Creatine supplementation extends the time that the ATP-PC system can be utilized. Disadvantages. There is a limited supply of phosphocreatine in the muscle cells, i.e. it can only last for 10s. Only one molecule of ATP can be regenerated for every molecule of PC. PC regeneration can only take place in the presence of oxygen, i.e. when the intensity of the exercise is reduced. Lactic acid energy system. ADP plus glucose equals ATP. When PCR runs out, the muscles call upon stores of glucose, glycogen. Lasts between 10 to 60 seconds. Has a waste product called pyruvic acid. If not enough oxygen is breathed in to break pyruvic acid down, oxygen debt, it converts into lactic acid. This is also called anaerobic glycolysis. Think 400 meters. Lactic acid energy system. Glycogen in liver. Carbohydrate in food. Glucose in bloodstream. Glucose in muscle. Anaerobic. Muscle sarcoplasm. 2. ATP. Glycolysis. Pyruvic acid. Lactic acid, 1. Lactic acid, 1. Plus O2. Acetyl coenzyme A. Lactic acid system advantages. ATP can be regenerated quite quickly because few chemical reactions are involved. In the presence of oxygen, lactic acid can be converted back into liver glycogen, or used as a fuel by oxidation into carbon dioxide and water. It can be used for a sprint finish, i.e. to produce an extra burst of energy. Lactic acid system disadvantages. Lactic acid is the byproduct. The accumulation of acid in the body denatures enzymes and prevents them increasing the rate at which chemical reactions take place. Only a small amount of energy, 5%, can be released from glycogen under anaerobic conditions, as opposed to 95% under aerobic conditions. Think long-distance running. Aerobic energy system starts similar to the lactic acid system. ADP plus P plus glucose equals ATP plus pyruvic acid. As oxygen is present, the pyruvic acid does not convert into lactic acid but into another 34 molecules of ATP. Long-term low-intensity exercise. Carbon dioxide, CO2, and water, H2O0 are step products of this system. Think long-distance running. Aerobic energy system. O2. The aerobic system of energy production needs oxygen. Breaks down carbohydrates and fats into CO2, H20 and energy. Takes approx 3 minutes to extract 95% of energy from glucose molecule. This supplies the body with a prolonged and steady supply of energy. Aerobic energy system. Immediate energy production, therefore, comes from the other two anaerobic systems used. Heart rate and ventilation rate increase during exercise. The vascular system distributes more oxygenated blood to our working muscles. Within 1 to 2 minutes the muscles are being supplied with enough oxygen to allow effective aerobic respiration. ATP, 1 burst of energy, equals A.D.P. ADP plus PCR equals ATP, 3 tenths of work, equals ADP. ADP plus glucose equals ATP, 1060 s of work, equals ADP plus pyruvic acid, no oxygen equals lactic acid. ADP plus P plus glucose equals ADP plus pyruvic acid plus oxygen equals 34 ATP plus CO2 plus H20. Electron transport chain. 2. ATP. Muscle sarcoplasm. Anaerobic. Glycolysis. Pyruvic acid. Acetyl-CoA. O2. Plus oxaloacetic acid. Muscle mitochondria. Aerobic. 2. ATP. Citric acid. Krebs cycle. Carbon dioxide. Hydrogen. Electron transport chain. Electron transport chain. The aerobic system advantages. More ATP can be produced, 38 ATP from the complete breakdown of one glucose molecule. There are no fatiguing byproducts, only carbon dioxide and water. Stores of glycogen and triglyceride are plentiful, so exercise can last for a long time. The aerobic system disadvantages. This is a complicated system, so it cannot be used immediately. It takes time for enough oxygen to become available to meet the demands of the activity and ensure glycogen and fatty acids are completely broken down. Fatty acid transportation to muscles is low and fatty acids require 15% more oxygen to break them down than glycogen. Food fuels. Food is the basic form of energy for ATP regeneration. The main energy foods are carbohydrates, stored as glycogen and converted into glucose during exercise. Glycogen, a complex sugar supplied from muscle or liver stores. Glucose, a simple sugar supplied from the blood. Fats, stored as triglycerides in adipose tissue under the skin and converted by the enzyme lipase to free fatty acids when required.